Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ESET East Africa webinar series. Today we will be uh, doing a similar webinar to last week to recover the launch of ESET Consumer V10 products. So for those of you that were in last week's webinar, there unfortunately won't be anything new for you besides pricing information that we obtained recently. But beyond that, we will be covering a great deal of the same material. But as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them through on the Q&A section on the webinar platform, and we will aim to answer those either as we go along or towards the end of the session. So to kick things off, there's obviously a couple of changes that have occurred with the consumer range of our products. First things first, there's a couple of name changes that have occurred. So that's presented to you on screen at the moment. So NOD32 antivirus remains the same, obviously just now with a little bit of a different icon. Smart security is falling away and is changing name to internet security. Multi-device security remains the same, and now the brand new product that we have is, of course, ESET Smart Security Premium. And we'll cover the differences between those as we go along. So, internet security first. Obviously, it replaces the Smart Security as our new internet security product. And the main reason for that is because the term internet security has essentially become a commodity. And no matter what AV vendor you go to, all of them essentially have what they dub an internet security package. It is typically slightly more featured than a typical antivirus package because it obviously comes with internet security related features such as a firewall, in addition to a couple of other features. So people are obviously searching for the term internet security. So by not having an internet security product, ESET essentially had a worse starting position when competing on the market because we weren't seen in the relevant search results. It needs to be pointed out, however, that smart security packages can still be renewed or enlarged. And that Smart Security will have a V10 version, obviously in the form of the ESET Smart Security Premium. And yeah, that's basically the scenario. But the most important in this case is typically Smart Security had the anti-theft component that is falling away. So it is not in the new Internet Security. It is only available in Smart Security Premium. So on that topic, with Smart Security Premium, so Smart Security is obviously a term that is associated with the ESET brand, so it makes sense to kind of keep that name in place. We obviously still want to keep the brand alive, especially considering the good search results that we do get from it, because obviously Smart Security is synonymous with the ESET consumer range. Then on the topic of my multi-device security packs, the N+N licenses are to be discontinued, or in fact, they have already been discontinued. And the idea with the multi-device security was that you had X number of computers and X number of mobile devices. Now, instead, you simply choose the number of devices you have in total and get the appropriate bundle so that you can chop and choose with more freedom as to which devices you need to install it on. And there are, of course, 2-year options available for the new multi-device security packs as well. So to elaborate on what those will look like from a pricing perspective and how those prices will have changed. So obviously all of that is displayed on screen. So you're basically looking at a cost from $40 in year 1 up to $43 in year 2, with a maximum of 7 devices being covered at peak for just over $64 for a 2-year period. So it works out ever so slightly more expensive than the previous N+N bundles, but it obviously comes with that additional freedom of choice, because previously if you take a 3+3 bundle, for example, you could only install it on 3 computers and 3 mobile devices, whereas now maybe you have 4 computers and 1 mobile device, so the 5 bundle is far more applicable. Otherwise you would have to have gone with the 5+5 previously, which would have been a lot more expensive. Then on the topic of new features, the first new feature is the script-based attack protection. And this is the newest addition across the board for all ESET consumer products. And this is especially since the advent of ransomware and the fact that JavaScript is executed natively by Windows. Obviously, JavaScript in general opens a massive door for various browser-based attacks. Windows PowerShell has also been linked to more than a third of known cyber attacks known to exploit bad scripts. And the idea behind the script-based attack protection is you essentially detect those attacks, whether they're coming from PowerShell or if they're going through malicious JavaScript in your browser. ESET will now pick that up and essentially block it from processing in the first place. So that's a big bash to try and prevent the spread of the most prevalent threat at the moment, which is, of course, ransomware. Then the other new feature is ESET webcam protection. So there's a mistake in reality that people believe if the light is off, the webcam is not on. This is unfortunately not the case. The light in the vast majority of webcams is enabled by firmware or software hooks, so there are ways of these to be bypassed, so you can turn the camera on without switching on the little indicator light or LED as well. And it's also becoming more common for other apps or malware to hook into a webcam while it is being used by another application like Skype, for example. So with the ESET webcam protection, you will be informed of anything trying to use your webcam, and you can decide if the software that is trying to access it is legitimate and whether or not you want to allow it or not. Then another new feature is ESET network, home network protection. And regrettably, one of the most common risks out there are the simple things, like weak passwords or out-of-date firmware on all Internet of Things devices. And this ranges from your routers and printers and everything else. Now, obviously, the recent surge in DDoS attacks as a result of the Mirai malware, which infects everything ranging from IP cameras to routers to printers, it's more important than ever to ensure that these devices are properly protected, that they're running up-to-date firmware, and that they're not running weak passwords. So the idea behind the home network protection is that the ESET software will test your router that it is connected to for various vulnerabilities, and then it even provides a list of connected devices and categorize them by type so that you can see who is connected. Then another new feature is the ESET Password Manager. So this is a feature in addition to the next feature, which are only available in the new ESET Smart Security Premium package, obviously in addition to the anti-theft, which has moved across. And the main idea behind this is obviously password managing is becoming a fairly prevalent problem. People obviously use a lot of weak passwords. They obviously reuse a lot of passwords, which is obviously a relatively poor or bad practice in general. So the idea is that you switch to a password manager, you only remember your one master password, and that gives you access to all the other passwords. So generally when you deploy a password manager solution, or if you're moving into one, one of the things that you should probably do is progressively log into all of the sites that you use, change the password to an auto-generated, highly secure random password, and then save that in your password manager. That way, not even you know the password to those sites. You use your password manager to get into them, and obviously all the passwords and data that you store in the application is stored using industry standard AES 256-bit encryption. Then the last brand new feature is in the form of ESET Secure Data. It's essentially a encryption platform, and it allows you to encrypt files and removable media, and you can either create virtual drives, which essentially means that you're creating a large file with encrypted data stored within it. So you can, for example, take your, say, terabyte hard drive, make a big 10 gig file on that drive, use it as a virtual encrypted drive, and then all of the data that you actually allocate within that 10 gig container is encrypted. And if you then log out of your machine or close the virtual drive, then that volume is essentially locked, and you can only actually gain access to the encrypted data within by typing in the correct password. So next, this is just a quick comparison table so that you can see the differences between packages. So obviously, first things first, as I mentioned, the script-based attack protection is the brand new feature available across the board. Webcam and home network protection is available from Internet Security and up. Anti-theft has moved across, so it's only available in Smart Security, which is obviously included in multi-device security. And now the password manager and secure data is only available in Smart Security Premium. So that wraps up the presentation part of today's webinar. Just give me a second and I will switch over to a quick demo of the software. So this is a little virtual machine running on my laptop at the moment with the latest Smart Security Premium package installed, because obviously today I just want to highlight all the nice new and nifty features that have been introduced. So obviously, as you can see, last time I spun this up for last week's webinar, I haven't actually run this machine since, so there's obviously some Windows updates available in the middle there. I also hadn't yet enabled the anti-theft component, but obviously it's a feature that has existed for some time, so I'm not going to delve into that today. The things that I do want to cover are the password manager, which in my case I have already configured the password manager. I've already created my master account and I've already installed the plugin into my Chrome browser. So that's the little icon over there. So you can see that it's currently locked. It actually locks itself after a couple of moments of inactivity. So now I click on the icon and I need to type in my master password in order to gain access to this set of accounts. I type that in and now it is unlocked, and you can obviously see that through the change of color on the icon. And obviously this is my little demo instance, so I don't have any accounts loaded into it. But essentially what would happen is you would have a series of web accounts. I can go and add an account manually, enter a login name, enter a password. Alternatively, of course, as you log into accounts, it'll prompt you to maybe save it instead. I would then also be able to switch identity, so I can maybe separate sets of credentials, maybe have a work identity and a personal identity so that you don't mix the two up. And then there's a couple of other options that you can obviously change. I can also open the password manager manually, so this is the actual application itself. I can perform a lot of the same type of activity over here. And then, of course, from a settings perspective, there's just a few things that I wanted to cover, such as being able to start it up when you start up Windows, being able to delete passwords out of the clipboard after a set time frame for added security, obviously making sure that the relevant browsers are protected. So at the moment, these are the ones that are currently supported and available. There will obviously be more that are introduced as we go along. You could also customize the auto lock facility. So in my case, obviously it was 10 minutes. And then there's a couple of other things that you can change as well. So you can also ignore specific sites if you never want to save passwords for those, amongst a couple of other features. So obviously this is going to be a great stride for everyone in order to ensure that they use secure passwords and that they don't forget them. And then, of course, the next feature is in the form of the encryption facility. So while I cover that, you can access it from the main ESET window. So I can go over to Tools and I can go to Secure Data. Now I can either encrypt a removable drive or access a virtual drive. I'm going to say virtual drive. This is in order to create a new one. So I've already created one over there, which happens to be that one on my desktop over there. If I open this one, because I am logged into my machine, it is configured currently to automatically unlock once I log into Windows, which is why I was able to access this immediately. If I ever wanted to create a new one, so I'm going to say, let's make this number 2, save it in the same place, specify a size, that's okay. Going to continue, set a password. Can make it more secure, but this is obviously just for demo purposes, and this is the option that I was referring to. So that one over there that's already created is decrypted automatically once I log into this Windows account. Alternatively, I can untick that option, and that way every time I log into Windows, I need to first open this up and actually unlock it before I can gain access to the data within. So that's fairly straightforward from the encryption perspective. Obviously, ours isn't exactly a home network, and this is a virtual machine not connected to a typical network, so the home network protection shouldn't find anything in particular. We have a couple of access points and everything else, but obviously this machine is not currently connected over Wi-Fi, so this is not going to work out for us as a demo. And the last thing that I want to show is actually a feature that has existed for a long time, similar to anti-theft, but it's something that's becoming more and more important, and that is in the form of the banking and payment protection. So that is essentially, if I open it up quickly, it's basically a sandboxed browser. So everything that you do in this browser is abstracted from the rest of your machine. So you can basically rest with confidence that while you are making transactions within this browser and you're using it normally, that you don't run into any risks. So obviously make sure that whatever credentials you type in aren't going to cause any problems along the way, and they're not going to fall into the hands of unauthorized parties. Because it's abstracted and it's essentially sandboxed, people can't use things like keyloggers and everything else in order to gain access to that data or similar types of malware. So I think mine's a little bit malfunctioning at the moment. Apologize for that. That's obviously maybe just because it's my little demo instance. We're going to cancel that. Let's try it again. There we go. So as we can see, we are now secured by ESET in this little browser. You can see the little green frame kind of follow it along as I move. So this essentially, as it implies, provides some additional security when you are transacting with your bank through the internet. So that essentially wraps up today. Obviously, it's very short. It's a consumer product launch, so there's not a great deal to show aside from the wonderful new features. If there are any questions, now would be the time to get those through in order for me to answer them for you. And while we're on the topic, if anyone wants to send through any questions in the meantime, obviously we are still updating our wiki on an ongoing basis. So all of our past webinars you will find on there, everything ranging from our ransomware Q&A session to webinars on all of our other products, ranging from StorageCraft as our backup and DR solution to Endpoint Protector as our data loss prevention solution, and Curio, our UTM or next generation firewall. There's a great deal of webinar videos available online that you can watch at your leisure, in addition to a great deal of documentation, how to obtain files, marketing material, and a whole bunch of other stuff that will help you sell the products and obviously generate more revenue. Let me just have a quick look. I've got a question here. Is ESET Banking Protection active when it is out of license? No, I speak under correction, Johannes. I will double check on that and let you know. My suspicion would be that you are not active, because obviously as the license expires, you are no longer able to obtain updates and everything else. So I would assume that the banking protection in particular would also become unusable. Let me confirm that, and I will send it to you directly via email. Obviously, we've got your sign up on our webinar, so I will get in touch. Are there any other questions from anyone else that's attending today's session? No further questions. Let me have a quick look. If I'm to purchase it and am in Dar es Salaam, how will they be shipped here? Just to maybe get some clarification on that, all of our licenses are essentially purchased online. It is only on request that we facilitate the delivery of some type of physical media. Obviously, as the ongoing trend goes, it's fairly uncommon these days for us to ship boxes of some kind, mainly because when the software then arrives with the user, 99% of the time it's been sitting on a shelf for some time and the user has to download updates in any case. So all of our licenses are obviously issued as license keys. You then go and download and install the latest version from the ESET website. So while we do physical media in some circumstances on request only, obviously we try to discourage it for the update reasons, because they're going to have to download almost the same amount of data as is stored on the media in the first place. So basically, if you are in Dar es Salaam, you'd basically need to get in touch, and if you wanted to get some type of physical media for a shop front or something along those lines, that would be a special arrangement that we would make.
You haven't collected any money. It just sits as so it will eventually own your partner.
Okay, so I've got another question. If you were to purchase it online, are you allowed to repackage it there? I would again need to get clarification on that point. I don't think so, mainly because there are set branding templates that are used, and we have recently gone through an exercise in order to create new retail box material with updated ESET logo and relevant branding. So I highly doubt that you would be allowed to repackage it locally, because we also need to ensure that whatever media is used, like let's say in the form of flash drives, that those are of a reasonable quality. So obviously we want to have some level of quality control. So in those cases, we would, you'd probably, as I mentioned, get in touch with us. We would use our brand new physical media that is available only on request, determine the quantity that needs to get to you, and obviously arrange that on an ad hoc basis. Okay, so I got another question. How do I load money to buy the product on my ESET account? So that is an open-ended question, because there are two circumstances. Obviously, as a partner, you can place an order with us and you get your license key, but if you then need to pay, you can obviously either pay via EFT or SWIFT transfer, or you can pay through our partner's own online using your credit card. So it's not really a case of loading money per se, it's more along the lines of making a payment for the relevant order, whether that be either via transfer or via credit card. That would be up to you. That's up to your discretion as to which method would be preferable. The other thing to point out is there is also the, our brand new online store, which should be available via store.esetafrica.com. So that's had a great deal of changes made to make it look very, very shiny and easy to use. And there's also a few changes that have been made into the payment mechanisms in that regard in order to make it a little bit more efficient and easier to use for you guys as customers. So obviously you can use those for some consumer licenses as well, but obviously any partner-related orders have to come through the partner zone as opposed to the online store. The online store is obviously for our general consumers who want to just go online and buy the product directly, as opposed to going through one of the relevant attendees on the webinar today, because you are all obviously partners of ours across our distribution regions. I'm just waiting for any other questions to come through if you might have them. Let me just have a quick look. There's another question that has come through. Okay, so there was basically just some clarification asked on the point of packaging, because you expect some customers to buy the product in shops, and yes, we do have arrangements for such customers. It is a new arrangement because, as I mentioned, we obviously try and dissuade people from storing retail material. But as I said, get in touch with us directly following today's session. You basically need to indicate what type of quantity you're looking at and for what type of purpose, and then we can basically arrange an order and obviously subsequent delivery of that retail material. I hope that answers your question, Johannes. If anyone else has any other questions, please send them through.
So they're asking, so now we know that's up. You know what I'm saying? Like, cumulative amount of content working right now.
Great, so Johannes has indicated that that has answered his question. Any questions from the rest of the attendees today before we wrap up today's session? I have to point out I've gotten more questions today than I have in probably the last 5 or 6 webinars that I have done, so that's great. So it's nice to see some level of engagement from our attendees. If anyone has any other questions, please send them through. Okay, so there's another question that has come through along the lines of if you were to purchase larger quantity and sell online, what is the best means for you to advise on running an online shop? I speak under correction, but I don't believe you can sell online in the same fashion that we do. So basically, our online store, obviously, when you go online and you pay by credit card, the license keys are submitted to you via email automatically. So that is an API-based system that is in place on our side. I would need to check whether or not partners are actually allowed to do the same. If you were to do that, you'd obviously need to create a system to integrate with our existing API that is available. So on that topic, basically what we have is in South Africa, for example, we have some internet service providers who actually resell the product. So when people go online and they purchase, say, internet connectivity, they can bolt on some level of antivirus protection or package, and then obviously people can buy online. But what happens there is they're obviously paying via credit card to their ISP. So what happens is the ISP system communicates over the API to our system in order to request those license keys to be generated. So that's essentially where that API integration comes from. So I'll need to double check if existing partners are able to use the same system, or if there's another way for you to do that. So let me check on that and let you know. Another question on when will they be ready to purchase? Just to clarify, I would assume you're referring to when is the consumer V10 products ready to purchase. They are already, so you can already purchase it. It is already in our partner zone, and it is already on the online store. So it is a brand new product that is launched, and it is ready to go, which is obviously why I've got it running on my little demo virtual machine. So there's another question that has come through. How long does it take to get the license key once you pay? So let's say, for example, you as a consumer were to go onto the online store and pay by a credit card, you get the license key immediately via email. In the case of a partner order, if you were to say purchase consumer products on behalf of one of your retail customers, as soon as you place the order and make payment, then you get those license keys as soon as that payment is processed. So normally what happens is you place an order with us, you then make a transfer in order to pay us, and once that money has cleared into our bank account, it's allocated to your partner account, and we are able to actually submit and process that order, and it's at that point that the license keys are generated. On the other hand, if you wanted to pay on the partner's own by a credit card, which is obviously the far more immediate and short-term method, as soon as you complete the credit card transaction to add funds to your account, you are able to immediately have those orders processed. So it's basically as soon as we are able to get payment, the license keys are generated. Just getting some time so that everyone can send through some last questions. Obviously, as I mentioned to Johannes, we will get in touch with you directly to discuss that arrangement in a bit more detail. Thank you again for everyone that has engaged thus far. As I said, I've received more questions today than I probably have in the last couple of months of running webinars, so that's great for me to see that our partners are actually engaging in the webinar events. That obviously wraps up for today. I hope it was informative. If you have any questions following today's session, you can obviously send it through via email to partners@eSouthAfrica.com, or you can submit a query on our wiki on the Contact Us page. And as always, if there's any type of material or type of information that you are hoping to see on our wiki, we're obviously happy for any type of suggestion. We're always looking to improve it. So please send through any suggestions as well. You can find those on the Contact Us page on the wiki as well. And that, as I said, pretty much wraps up today. Thanks again for everyone that has attended, and I will see you all next week.